documentary, from the bullying to the domestic violence to the child abuse to drug abuse, it's 6 different things. The last one I always put mental health. And the reason why I'm so passionate about the 2 words mental health is that when people hear that, they think something negative right away. And I think they get it confused with mental illness. Put it like this. What if I just say physical health? You don't think anything negative, right?
No.
As soon as I say mental health, you go, what's wrong? So the point of this is to show the parallel is that they're all connected. Someone that's depressed can go to drug abuse, to go to alcohol, whatever it is, there's always some sort of parallel, so there's a connection to them all.
My name is AJ Friar, and I am here to talk about my dealings with suicide and depression. When I was young, I was diagnosed with the DiGeorge syndrome. It affects a lot of things: cognitive, learning, and expressive vocabulary. And it affected my speech impediments growing up as a kid. It was really tough being in public school because you know how mean kids can be. But it has gotten better. When I was in grade school, I was bullied a lot because of the monotone of my voice, and I couldn't articulate vocabulary very well. And some cases I still can't. So it has been a difficult part throughout most of my life, but as you get older, some people, are more well equipped to deal with this thing, and they don't really make it a big deal as it is if you're growing up with it. It is less than 2,000 cases a year that people have this. So it's kind of cool to talk about this in this documentary my friend T.O.N.E-z is doing. And just to shed a little light on it, I have dealt with some suicidal thoughts because of how, I've been treated and how people have been treating me throughout most of my life. I even attempted suicide once. Kind of glad it didn't take, because then I wouldn't be here sharing this with you. So again, thank you to T.O.N.E.z and the people behind this documentary allowing me to speak on this. And for those of you who are watching, might have a hard time, may not have the same case that I do, but may be dealing with some of the same issues of bullying and suicidal thoughts and ideation and tendencies. Just, bear with me a little while. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm actually surprised on how well together I am for this. It is just one of those things that a rare case like this can impact somebody's life for a long time, and it may not be easy to get over, but it will get better. And that's for anyone who's dealing with speech impediments or can't really articulate vocabulary as well as others, or think they kind of hate their voice like I hate mine sometimes, most of the time. But just continue pushing through and strive to beat the odds.
I wanted to take a moment to talk about the ripple effect of suicide. On November 16th, 2023, I lost my best friend of 20 years. I had talked to him the night before and had no idea this was coming. His name is James Alexander Alex Morton. He was the smartest, kindest, most enthusiastic go-getter I had ever met. Over the years, we had gone through our ups and downs and dated on and off. And on that day, I got that first phone call. Something happened. I screamed. I could barely get my car into the neighborhood. My kids were in the car. I felt so bad, especially for my oldest son. He was there for my oldest son for so many years. My son still has a hard time today. I flew up there, and I remember asking our closest friends that were there with me, is it an open casket? Nobody would give me an answer until I walked into that funeral home hall and saw him in the casket. I will never get that image out of my head. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others, because you don't know what battles somebody is going through behind closed doors. My life changed forever that day. I had to learn to look for the signs and find our memories in music. I will never forget him and will continue to be there for people, because I don't want anybody to stay in darkness. It's not a good place to be.
My name is Dr. Tracy Rosa. I am a metaphysician. A metaphysician is someone, like, I'm trained in hypnotherapy, and then I'm trained in holistic body work, including massage therapy, but I never use regular massage therapy in my practice because I've found better ways to address the body and the mind through specific points in the body, sort of like acupressure, that type of stuff, combining it with like a polarity and healing, holistic healing. So as far as like doing body work and stuff like that, people are always like, oh my god, I injured myself, or I worked out so hard, oh my muscle hurts, oh this, that. And it's always like a physical response, but people are not realizing that their thoughts are actually going into their body as well. If you're under a lot of stress and, you know, for example, like going through grief, a client of mine's mom had passed away, and I've known other people whose parents have passed away. My mom passed away last year in October. So what, sorry, now I shouldn't have said that.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
So talking about like grief in the body too, like my client, she hasn't cleaned her mom's stuff out of her house yet or anything like that, so she's sitting with it. She's recently gotten cancer, infections in her body, that type of stuff. After my mom passed, like, I could feel crazy heart palpitations and stuff like that, like going through all the grief. But what I did, me and my brother did, like 2 months after, like, we cleaned her house out. And then all of a sudden, like, my body started to almost, like, feel better. Like, because you're, like, cleaning out the house, and then you're, like, cleaning out your emotions, too. We were cleaning out the house, and after, you know, it was done and stuff, and then I came back here to work on my client. And she was talking about like how she was sick all the time now, and like her lymphatic system was going out of control, and even though I was addressing it, it wasn't working because she wasn't addressing the emotions and stuff that she was going through and feeling. And another client of mine, Her husband passed years ago, and she never cleaned his stuff out. And then more recently, she had started cleaning some of the stuff out, and she was like, I feel different. And I'm like, that's what I was trying to say, like, to my other client. Like, I cleaned, like, cleaning my mom's house, at, like, walking in and still seeing the clothes and still seeing, like, you're just like paralyzing, right? Yeah. But once it gets cleaned up, you're like, okay, now this is the next step. And then it's almost like cleaning your emotions. So I'm really big about, like, doing body work and stuff to help release things. And how I figured out years ago how the emotions were trapped in the body. And I was working on a client, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I know I can get this knot out. What's going on? And then I'm like holding it, and I'm like, how was your morning? And she's like, my fucking husband, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden the knot went away. And I was like, huh? And I was like, oh shit, like, that's crazy. Wow. I'm like, I can't, you know? And then that's what actually led me to taking hypnosis school and hypnotherapy, so that, because I wanted to be able to help people release from their minds through their body too. And so that's what goes hand in hand into, like, the holistic healing. And so, yeah, and grief is huge. Like, anytime my clients are, I mean, even more than, like, stress at work or arguing, or it's almost like it has a physiological change to the body. And I wouldn't be able to talk about feeling it if my mom didn't pass away. But, like, I felt it, like, the heart palpitations, and, like, just, you almost feel out of your body half of the way. And, like, you can't focus, you can't, those things, and it's very clouded. So, more recently, like, and I, like, am a big advocate about taking care of yourself, wellness, you know, getting these bodywork treatments and stuff. But after my mom passed, like, I didn't tell anyone this, but I didn't let anyone work on me because I knew stuff would come out. So last Wednesday was the first time, and it's been probably 4 months since my mom passed, that I went and I got a 2-hour bodywork session. And as soon, like, in 2 seconds, as soon as she started to touch me, all of a sudden, like, I had all these thoughts, like, okay, everything's gonna be okay. Like, you're here on this earth because you're supposed to help people, and, you know, I have the same autoimmune disease as my mom did when she passed away, and I'm all about breaking generational traumas and helping that lineage and everything. So a message came that I'm supposed to address my body different than anybody else that ever has in my family line or my lineage. And so that was, like, huge. So I and my clients, like, they have epiphanies on the table too, just like I did. But I got to actually feel that.
Wow. Jesus.
That is powerful.
My name is LeRon Barton, and today I'm going to be talking about mass incarceration, how the school to prison pipeline works. You know, growing up in Kansas City, South Side, 63rd Street, one of the things that I realized is that there's a pathway to the penitentiary. We were living in a neighborhood that was historically underfunded. Drugs were all around us, gangbanging, and the police were a presence that was consistent. You know, I remember many kids being suspended for, like, the slightest infraction, whether be coming to school late, getting to class a couple minutes late, you know, shoving matches, or just even verbal altercations. Kids are like, you know what? You're suspended. And if you get suspended a couple times, then that means that you're expelled, or that's expulsion. And because of that, when someone gets expelled from school, they're more likely to hit the streets, you know, embrace street life. That makes you want to do things. You know, there's a term from where I'm from. It's called penitentiary chances. And that means that you're gonna commit crimes to try to get these things, knowing that if you get caught and arrested and convicted of these crimes, you could go to the penitentiary. But see, none of that matters, because when you are poor, when you are black, and when you go without, that is enough sort of ammunition, if you will, to go out into the streets. Going to jail was a pretty common thing for folks where I come from. You know, it wasn't nothing for someone to go to jail for a couple months, come home, even somebody go to the county for say 6 months, or even to prison and come home and do the same thing all over again. You know, there's a saying that I have. The lines between right and wrong become really blurry when you're hungry. Has a mom, she's strung out. Dad is wherever. He could be locked up. He could be not around, right? He's got 2, 3 young siblings to feed. So he gets out there, he starts selling dope. He's gang banging. He's doing smash and grab robberies. He's doing whatever he can to support his family now. Because see, that's the thing. People don't understand the urgency of poverty. You know, he can't go to college and leave his siblings behind because they're going to suffer. He has to be there and he has to support his family. So what does he do? He commits crimes, knowing that there's a possibility that he could be locked up. This young man knows that he is affecting the community negatively. We know that. We know that selling dope is just putting a knife in the back of our community. But we rationalize it by saying, well, if I don't do it, somebody else will. Or, you know what? It's their choice. A thing can say yes, or they can say no. So we rationalize things in order to make money to support ourselves. You know, a lot of the decisions that we make are due to not having strong foundations, right? Are due to the price, the expensiveness of being black in America. I've been to jail, you know, I've tried drugs, you know, I've you know, moved and grooved throughout the hood, and I might have made it out, but those mental scars still stay with me. This is not an excuse, but this is an explanation. And a lot of this starts from school, man. See, the school to prison pipeline is real. Because see, the way it works is this. You get suspended, or you have a SRO or a school resource officer that comes in and that takes you from the school, gets you arrested, you possibly go into juvenile hall or some type of adolescent confinement, or you just get a record. So you already got a record, you right in the system. And the thing about having a record is those things tend to stack. So once you go from having a misdemeanor here to having a misdemeanor there, and it graduates to having a felony. And so now you're pretty much done. So what are you going to do? So again, this is why I talk about the cost of blackness, because it's real. The school to prison pipeline was created for us to be filling up these human warehouses, or we call prisons, as what it was in slavery, as it is today in the penitentiary.
Hi, I'm Sari Cohen. I am an entertainment journalist, and I live in Los Angeles, California. Let's see, my earliest memories of dealing with something that affected my mental health. I mean, there were lots of things when I was younger, dealing with life and death at a young age. made me very aware of my emotions, being surrounded by illness. My mom was very sick growing up. And that definitely had an effect on me. But when I was a freshman in high school, I had a good friend of mine who committed suicide. He was one of my best friends. And I didn't see it coming. And for a good part of my life, I felt like I should have known. I think the first thing that I remember, I mean, looking back on it, I was a baby. I was a baby. I was 14 years old. I thought I was so grown up. And I had experienced loss, but not like this. I mean, this was one of my best friends. And we talked every day. And he was so talented. He was so talented. He used to play the guitar. I had a lot of friends. He didn't go to my school. But the day before he took his life, he came to my school to see me. We had plans. And I was really caught up in what was happening in school, and I saw him, but I didn't see him, and I didn't want to be, walk home alone. And, this was growing up in New York, and as a little girl, I was like, okay, I'll walk home with my friends. I'll just call him later. All right. We'll talk later tonight. So I remember the last time I saw him. I remember just seeing him standing there, thinking I would talk to him later. And that night he didn't call, which was unusual because we talked every night. And then the next day I stayed home from school. I was not feeling well, and, any chance to stay home from school I would take. And evening comes along, and Frank doesn't call again. I don't hear from him. And the night goes on, and then I get a call from a mutual friend of ours, and she's crying, and I could barely make out the words she's saying, but it's enough for me to hear, Frank's dead. Frank's gone. And I was just in shock. It was like I felt my soul leave my body. I was confused. I was devastated. I was like in a snap. My whole life changed. My whole way I thought, the way I felt, the life I was living was like I had entered a different timeline. And everything changed after that. Learning what happened, because obviously that was my next reaction. What happened? How is he gone? What happened? And then I learned he took his life at 15 years old. This boy, who was one of my best friends, who I thought I knew backwards and forwards, was so sad that he wanted to leave this world. Destroyed. I mean, I knew he had it rough. Oh, I felt for his sister. And then things come out, you learn how he did it. And, at that age, when you're a teenager and stuff goes around, it's like, what's true? What's not true? I was close with the sister, and, she shared things with me. I think I'm still left with questions. I always, every year, it's been so many years, it's been over 30 years. I still, every year of the passing, the anniversary of his passing, it's like I can feel it coming up. His birthday, I still find a way to celebrate in one way. But his death sent me on a spiral. I lived with a lot of guilt from that, thinking that I could have saved him or helped him, or what if I had stayed that last day? What if I was in school and stayed in school and walked home with him that day, and then maybe he wouldn't have done it. Maybe I would have been able to find the right words, or maybe he would have known he had a friend in me. Maybe he would still be here. It's a lot of, the adult me looking back knows that's a lot of guilt for a 14-year-old to live with. Oh, I went through a lot of therapy after that, because I was not okay. And this was the first time in my life that I was really learning about mental health and what it means to be depressed. Not just depressed, but suicidal. And of course, the feelings and the effect that it has on other people, and how someone could get to a place where they could feel like that. And I was in a dark place. I began to understand that. So I went to therapy, and really started to work through a lot of the things that I was feeling. But it's never something that you can work through, right? It's not like you get to the other side of it and ta-da, everything's just great. You're sad one day and the next day you're not. No, I went through years of like, I couldn't get out of bed. I barely graduated school. I mean, that was like, to get me to go to school, man, that was an accomplishment. That was like just just pass your classes, it was like the bare minimum. You realize life is short. Life is short. And it's choice. Happiness is a choice. You have to make it every day. It's not something that happens to you. It's not something, it's like you accomplish this and then you're happy. Once you get here and you're happy. No, you don't. I learned you don't have control over how you feel, but you do have control over what you do with it. That's your choice. When things happen to us, there are things that happen in life that we don't have any control over. But when we see that, and when we acknowledge it, what we do with that information and how we move forward, that part's on us. We do have control over that. That's our choice. So yeah, I would say it's still, as an adult, your emotions, what you go through, depression, sadness, happiness. I try to live in a state of gratitude. I think when you know how fragile life is, or how bad it can be, how in an instant everything can change, kind of makes you feel like every day you wake up, every breath you take, just a reason to be grateful. You know, get to be alive. That's a gift. That's a gift. Doesn't come without its hardships, though, but it's still a gift. So, yeah, it's been a long road. It's a continuous road. And my teens, just like everybody else's, that was when I think I found most of my struggles. And my 20s were no picnic either. That was coming off of the loss of my best friend and my mother's illness, and took a long time until I got to the point in life where I was able to think of myself and my happiness. Life kind of gave me the role of being caretaker. I love that. I have a beautiful family to take care of. It's also really easy to forget in all of that sometimes you have to remember that the person you should be taking care of first and foremost is yourself. Makes it a lot easier to care for everyone else. I don't know, man. Life is hard. Life is hard. We all have struggles. You don't know what someone's story is. I think that's a really important thing to remember. We are all so quick to judge people today. It's easy. We think we know them. I mean, social media tells us we do, right? And I see this person on Facebook, their life looks so great. I heard from so-and-so that this happened, and everybody's got something to say about somebody, whether it's good or bad. We all have opinions and we're entitled to it, but you don't know someone's story, right? You stand in line next to someone in a grocery store, and someone cuts in front of you, or someone's taking too long, or it's just really important to remember that everybody has a story just like you. And it costs nothing to be kind, right? Your smile, your patience, your generosity, your love. You have the ability to change someone's life for the better just with that. And then that person has the ability to take that energy and change the next person's life, and the next person, and then that person can change the next person's. It's a ripple. And it's important to remember that love and kindness and honesty and goodness, that's the answer. I hope this helps.
All right. Mr. Mykelti Williamson, my brother. So listen, the thing about mental health, right, is when people hear those two words, they automatically think something negative. So instead of someone saying, like when somebody says, how's your mental health, they think something's wrong with you or something like that. I don't know if you should put the downside of mental health in front of it, because you could be smiling and having a great time. That means your mental health is good. But when they hear those two words, the first thing that come out, they think something negative.
Yeah.
In your journey and your travels, I would like to know your thoughts on it, if you ever dealt with it or know someone that dealt with it. And why is it so, I don't want to use the word popular, but why is it so huge now? Like now, it's more than ever. Now that, there could be a million reasons for it, but it could be something internal with the different individuals. So I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Well, once you figure out how to monetize helping someone, you can make sure it becomes popular. All right? This is capitalism we're talking about. Okay? So, in a capitalistic basin, everything has to end up with a monetization benefit for its survival. It will not survive, whatever your idea is, if it does not sustain the business model of capitalism. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So that's why you see it more popular now, because once you show a true capitalist, yeah, there's a health benefit, but there's also an opportunity to grow capital, right? By helping people, not just treating, but helping. Yeah. So once you bridge that gap and you say things like mental health, it becomes more important. I think most people realize it's something that we should be discussing. That's why it's so popular right now. But I think we'll get more help in that basin if we can come up with ways that actually help but can be monetized. Because when you figure out that formula, it can survive in a system of capitalism. Otherwise it can't, because it's idealism.
Another thing is, I noticed that like, let's just say a certain celebrity or someone has a revelation, or they expose something, or go against the grain. When it's the person that they're speaking of, that person that they'll always say, oh, we got to check on that person's mental health, because it makes you feel like if you say something, like if you let's say you say something about Puff, say, oh man, Puff this and Puff that, and then his people will go, we got to check that person's mental health, to make us seem like there's something's wrong with them. And all they did was say something that's like, hey man, I heard this guy did this, and expose something. So I think a lot of those people like to use that. Like, I think it was Charles Oakley.
Okay.
They kicked him out of a Knick game.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it on television.
Guess what happened? He had every right to be there, but they kicked him out, and so he got upset, and they said, oh, we got to check on his mental health. There was nothing wrong with him that I seen, but they used that as almost like they weaponized it in a way to belittle someone's thoughts, their thoughts and their theories, just to say, oh man, something's up with them. Right.
Well, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I think just about anything can be weaponized if you limit your vocabulary. There's a lot of people that they hijack language. One of the most, I'll show you the hijacking of language.
Suicide and depression, are almost, they're so related and intermingled, or entangled in a way that's almost difficult to untangle them. Suicide is a biggie because there are lots of folks in my profession. Maybe a somewhat amusing way of starting this off is that, I do a lot of surfing on YouTube, actors, this and that. And then one day, I don't know why the algorithm brought this up, it said that, hey, actors that have committed suicide, right? I went, oh, I'll check this out. Now, I'm sure people run across this. And it was a bit disturbing, A lot of them were broke and committed suicide, but, and there was a famous actor that I really enjoy called George Saunders. I don't know if you know who he was. He was in All About Eve, an old school actor. But he committed suicide, and he wrote a suicide note, said, I'm doing it because I'm just so bored. And right, and yeah, and the name of his biography is The Most Dreadful Man. And I'll never forget when I was a kid watching the guy that wrote the biography. It's very funny. He goes, "Oh, George was the most dreadful man. He was the most dreadful man. Yeah. You know, and he didn't like people, didn't like him. He was married several times. He was the most dreadful man." But I think that my personal experience with suicide, when my mother died, I was just turning 40, and I was very close to my mother. And I have an older brother and sister, and I was doing a TV show in Toronto at the time, and she got pretty ill, and I tended to her, and I tended to be with her a lot. And when she died, I was getting pretty messed up. I was drinking and drugging when she was, and I wasn't really, you know, I was self-medicating, as the expression goes. Such a benign expression, because, you know, it really masks a lot of just shitty behavior. Yep. So when she died, I went into a real big funk. Came back here to Los Angeles, where we are presently. I have to be honest and say that, you know, no, I haven't sat down with a gun, and no, I haven't taken a bunch of drugs. Well, I mean, intentionally to kill myself. Or have I, you know, done something where... But I think that night I was trying to kill myself, you know. And that was a suicide attempt. And I don't think I've ever said that really out loud. You know, and I've talked to people about the last night of, let's say, you know, certain people's lives, you know, be it Chris Farley or John Belushi, people that I knew that overdosed. It's like, in a way, like, they pulled the fucking switch. No, people don't know how low they can go. They just don't know how low they can go.
When they're down, they don't even know. It takes what you've been through, like you said, about a 7th, 8th, 9th story. You was like, oh man.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know how low you can go, and when you go that low, you go, oh man, it can't get any lower, and it does, and then, you know. You get paralyzed. I think paralytic sort of depression can be really paralyzing.
On what you dealt with, and you know how you are now. Like, how did you get to how you are now? You don't have to, you know, you can take as long as you want, but just that's the whole point of it, to show what led to you dealing with what you dealt with while you were dealing with it, and something happened. Whether it was family, whether it was whatever it was that made you go, you know what, something has to change, and then you are where you at right now.
Okay, and I'll look at the camera as much as possible.
Okay.
So, my name is Graham Yost, and I've known T.O.N.E-z since, I don't know, what, 2010?
15 years.
Yeah, a long time. We worked together on Justified. And he told me he was working on this documentary about mental health and substance abuse and all these things. And I said, well, I've got some experience there. And so I grew up in Canada, loving parents, good family, all of that. I found even in high school that I think I was drinking a little bit more than my friends were. You know, it was just a little bit more important to me. And then I got a job out in Western Canada working on the railroad. That's a whole. And once you do a documentary about crazy jobs, I'll tell you that job. It was crazy.
All right.
But I came back and I started to suffer from panic attack. I mean, really bad. And now some people panic attacks, they feel like they're having a heart attack and they're going to die. For me, it was, I thought I was going insane. And and this is 1979, 1980. And I was like 19, 20 years old. And the thing of it was, for whatever reason, that was the age I was. That was that time in Canada, how I was born. I didn't tell a soul, T.O.N.E-z. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell any friends. Didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell my brother. Didn't tell any girlfriend, nobody. I just suffered in silence, and I thought I was losing my mind. And it would pass, and then it would come back, and it would pass, um, and then, I mean, it got to the point where I was thinking, okay, if this doesn't stop. Oh, and I'd been going to university, and I took that year off. So now I didn't have anything to do. I didn't have a structure. I didn't have classes to go to and people to see. So I was alone a lot. Maybe not the best choice for that year. That's just the way it went. But there was a time I remember I was on the subway and it was like, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to step in front of a train. I can't live like the rest of my life like this. It's just. And then I was going to a party at a friend's house, and this was about 4 or 5 months into all of this starting. It all started in the fall of '79, and it was in the winter time. And I was going to a party at a friend's house, and I'm on the subway platform, and I could feel the tingle of the anxiety building up and the panic. You just feel it on sort of like an aura out there. And I got to their house, got to that party, went straight to the refrigerator and got out 2 beers and drank them fast. And I found that if I drank hard enough and fast enough, I could keep that panic attack at bay. So this was classic self-medication, right? I was just medicating because I had this mental illness and I didn't seek any professional help and didn't tell anybody. What had started there is that my alcohol use now, I have to be able to drink, because if I get a panic attack, I've got to drink. That's my medication. So for the rest of my drinking days, I had, for a lot of them anyway, I'd have a bottle of vodka in the freezer because I didn't like vodka. And that was my backup, right? In case I ran out of beer. I was strictly a beer drinker. If I ran out of beer, I could have that vodka. And so that was my level of drinking for a long, long time. And a couple of things happened. One was, well, I moved from Toronto to New York for 5 years, left New York, came to California. And I remember I was alone in California, and I heard an interview with this guy, David Brown, a great film producer, one of the producers of Jaws, actually. And he was saying that whenever he got depressed, he would go and try and do some volunteer work, help other people. That would take him out of the depression. So I honestly, there was a volunteer line. I called them, what do you need? And it was like, well, there's food banks and stuff. And it was basically, I said, is there anything that's a little more frontline? And they said, well, the Suicide Prevention Center always needs people to man the phones. And I went and I did that. And I thought, well, I thought of it. And I had a friend who thought of suicide in high school, and another friend, or early in college, and another friend who went through a rough spell as well. So it was out there, and I'd had a girlfriend in New York whose father had killed himself, and I mean, it was just kind of in the zeitgeist of my life, and so I did that, and boy, just going through that training and talking to people on the line and stuff, and just trying to help people, that had a profound effect on me. So drinking was a huge part of my life. And then in this running group, and I meet Connie, and it was like, holy crap, this woman's so beautiful. And then we started talking, and she's so smart, she's so funny, and all this stuff. And we started dating, and she knew I drank, but she didn't drink. She was already sober about 8 months at that point. And then we were almost about to break up after about a year. And instead we went into counseling. We just felt that there was something about our relationship that was worth saving. And I told that counselor how much I drank, and she asked me if I had ever been to a 12-step program. And so I won't get into the details of that. One of the things with 12-step programs, it's like Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club, right? I mean, you just, right. It's all anonymous and it's all that way. But I will say that I got sober. And I was one of the lucky bastards who I went to my first meeting of a 12-step program, and I haven't had a drink since. And that was a long, long time ago. And, Connie and I got married and 2 kids, and on we go. But, one of the other things that was interesting about now, God, it's almost 20 years ago now, and it feels like it was just not long ago, I started having those panic attacks again.
Oh, okay.
2005, fall of 2005, started having them again. It's holy shit. Here's the difference, Tones. I told Connie, I told my sponsor, I told my friends, I told friends in the program, I told my therapist. I've been seeing a therapist for a while. And as Connie put it really, really well, she says, I bet it didn't make everything all okay, but I bet it made it more endurable. And it did. I wasn't alone. I was so alone when I was 19. I didn't tell anyone. I
Yeah, you
just
didn't tell anybody. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Didn't tell it. Didn't reach out for any kind of help, professional or just friends. And that's just the way my story went. But so for me, panic attacks are always a possibility. I've talked to family members who have had them while they've been having them, and all I could say was just breathe. Just breathe. It will pass. And for them, the big thing was when they get medical attention and there's people with a stethoscope around their neck and they say exactly the same thing that I've been saying, but that can really calm them down. And I've talked to doctors about this, that 90% of the reason people should always see their doctor is just to get reassured it's going to be okay. That cough and that thing with your nose, that's just allergies. You don't have lung cancer, right? I mean, it's just whatever, right? And so, I know that's always there. I still see a therapist. I still go to meetings. I work with other people. I do a little bit of half-assed meditation that helps a bit, and I exercise. And I talk about this stuff with anyone who wants to talk about it. And everyone in my circle, and Sonia would know this too, right? Everyone who works with me knows that I'm sober. It can be odd because I'm the boss, but there have been people, there have been other writers who have come to me knowing that and said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? And there's no magical thing where I go, oh, here are the magic words and blah, blah, blah. But it's just, again, that feeling of not being alone, And so that's my biggest thing about, getting into a community of people who are just trying to help other people. I mean, that's the whole thing in 12 steps. All you're there for is to help yourself. And the only way you can help yourself is by helping other people. And the only way you can help other people is to do what I'm doing right now, which is tell my story. That's it.
Yes. Here's the beauty and I guess you could say the power behind what you just said is that the main thing, I caught everything you said, but when you said after Connie and all, now you're telling everybody, right? And because I caught with it, as soon as you said, oh man, I was dealing with it, because we all, especially as men, I don't want to seem weak. Whatever the reason is, the last thing you want to do is tell some girl like, hey, I want to take it a date, by the way, you don't want to do that. So the fact that, and I'm going to give all, love and praise to Connie, because obviously major part in your life. And when you said, well, we were on the verge of going our separate ways, something, God, universe, whatever people believe in, hey, someone said, nah. Now you went from that counseling, and then now when you, and then you said the anxiety came back. You know what I mean? Like, okay, remember me?
Yeah.
Said, oh yeah, but look who I got here. So now, it gives you that sense of it's almost like, when you're not feeling well and you get closer to home, or, your mother's coming home and you're not, it's that, like you said, when you go to a doctor and they say, oh man, you good. Oh man, thanks. Like, you know what I mean? So that's a beautiful thing, man. So basically what I got from you is definitely you, Connie, man.
Hi, my name is Diane Gembala. T.O.N.E-z and Jacqui and I had started to do a documentary on bullying. And the fourth party that we were with, unfortunately, turned out to be a fraudster and her film a fake. And the parallel, the song that T.O.N.E-z did, we were going to use that. And so it all fell apart. So here we are, and we're finally doing it. I was bullied from first day of fifth grade all the way up through into 11th grade. And it was really, really challenging. But I was so traumatized. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And it was just every day, morning, noon, and night. And I'd go to bed, I'd cry when I went to bed. I'd cry myself to sleep, wishing I would die. I asked God, please take me in my sleep. I hate this. I can't deal with this. And then the alarm would go off in the morning, and I wake up, and my heart would just, drop into my chest and my stomach, and here we go again. My parents were alcoholics. My first husband was an alcoholic. The wife beater, he drank beer like crazy. He must have been an alcoholic and abused drugs. And then my dear late husband, he was an alcoholic too. That's kind of a theme. But, and it still hurts. Oh man, I can't tell you. So all this pain, and when I had the spinal surgery, I stayed with my son at his house. And I just wasn't getting any better. It was just so much pain, and the abdominal pain and everything just, I was so messed up. And for 2 years I just laid in bed and mostly crying and just miserable. And I got to the point where it was so bad I couldn't stand it anymore. And I tried to kill myself.
I am Jacqui Blue. I am recording this Mother's Day Eve, 2025. But on Mother's Day Eve, 2011, I was lying in a pool of my own blood because I had the audacity to tell my now ex-husband that I wanted a divorce. So many women are killed when they try to leave a relationship with someone they loved. So many women are killed at the hands of their partners, their husbands, when they try to leave or say they want a divorce. I was almost one of these women. I was pushed through a window and was lying in a pool of my own blood on Mother's Day Eve, 2011. And 14 years later, it still haunts me, but not like you might think. Not on the daily. PTSD does not affect me on the daily. The trauma doesn't rock my everyday life, but at the same time, it is a ghost that I live with that never leaves. There's a lot of talk about femicide. We're all aware of domestic violence. We all know it happens. We all know it exists. We all know that people are killed by their partners every day. We all know that jails are full of people who've killed their partners. Everybody talks about those who died and those who killed them. We know about the victims and we know about the madmen. What you don't know about and what you don't hear about and what you don't even think about or consider is what hell the survivors continue to live with and suffer with and go through. The fact that there is a lack of trust when the person you loved made a commitment to honor, to cherish, till death do you part, tries to murder you because you no longer want to be lied to, abused, cheated on, and they try to murder you, it changes you. It changes the essence of who you are. And yeah, sure, maybe I got a second chance at life. And maybe, sure, yeah, I put myself through school twice and I made films and I've written books and I've raised my children and moved across the country and started a whole new life. But there's this ghost that haunts me because I know how it affected me and I know how it affected my children. And I know that most of my children blocked it out because they were young. And so their subconscious protected them and blocked it. But my oldest kid, he repeated my husband screaming that I should lay there and bleed, that I deserved this, that he hoped it hurt. He stood over my body as I'm bleeding, screaming obscenities, telling me to lay there and bleed, that he hoped it hurt. And my oldest son was 7 years old at the time. He overheard me screaming, I think you killed me. He overheard my ex-husband screaming at me to shut up and lay there and bleed, and I deserved it, and he hoped it hurt. And my son heard this. Not only did he hear it, he continued to repeat it for weeks afterwards. He repeated it as if it was an audio recording. He would throw his voice back from my voice, screaming in cries, desperate cries, pleading for help, to my ex-husband's scary, demonic, evil voice yelling obscenities at me. This little boy ended up in therapy and he eventually stopped doing that. But do you think it ever stopped haunting him? Do you think it ever stops haunting me? Do you ever think about the survivors and how PTSD from domestic violence affects them? Or do you only care about and are aware of and know about the madmen and the victims who died at the hands of their partners? Does anyone give a shit about the survivors and what we have to go through? Or do they just want to throw us on a welfare system and say,
well, you survived, so you got a second chance at life, but we're not going to give you any real support or help, and you have to do it all on your own.
And so we do, and it's hard, but we do it anyway. Why? Because that's what the will to live does. And do you have the will to live? Maybe not. Maybe your will to live is just because you have kids that are watching every goddamn move you make. Maybe it changes every single thing about you. And let's not even talk about survivor's guilt, right? Survivor's guilt. That means every single time I hear a story about a woman who died, I feel guilt and shame that I survived. Why did I survive? And why did she have to die? Why do I have to still live with this nightmare? But she got to die. Her pain and suffering ended with her violence. Mine continues in my mind with the questions of, am I really that horrible? Am I really that awful that the man I loved tried to murder me? Or is it a reflection on our society? Is it a reflection on these men? Because no, it wasn't my fault. But there are people who would want to believe that it is because they're misogynist, and this is the society that we live in, and it's not okay. And it's breaking people. And you look around the world and you wonder why there's so many broken people. This is one of many reasons. You don't care about the survivors, just like the pro-life crowd doesn't care about babies once they're born. And I'm sick of it, and it needs to change.
Black Lick, MC, radio host, public speaker, teacher, artist, lyricist, alcoholic.
Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I am an alcoholic.
It's been 12 years since I got sober, which I consider to be the best choice I ever made in my life.
My sobriety date is November 3rd, 2014. So to do quick math, I have been sober for 10 years.
In reflecting upon my journey and how I even got here, a lot of it started under the umbrella of my upbringing. You know, we followed telecommunications work across the country. It was me, my dad, my mom, and my older brother. And you know, I was born in California. I now live in Richmond, Virginia. So we drove all the way across the country. My pops chasing work, us staying in hotels, crack hotels, all sorts of different kinds of places. You never knew what each week would bring. And every time it was an adventure, but every time there were also drugs, alcohol. Not necessarily that, you know, even family was involved with it. My mom, she was usually the one who was sober. My pops, he drank. And it would kind of change his behavior, to say the least, sometimes. And there would be a cycle of negativity and conflict.
Part of what my plan today to talk to everybody about is not so much the illness of alcoholism, but all the stigma that's attached to it. And I think the fact that alcoholism is a very non-discriminatory illness, it can affect anybody. And I think it affects a lot more people than what we give credit for.
I learned that despite all that, a man can have a work ethic and still provide for his family, which my father always, no matter what, he got up and he went straight back to work, whether there was a job there or not, whether it was trying to just get construction work, anything that it took. My father worked hard to provide for us.
To sum up my childhood, my life, to kind of say like what my life was like, what happened, and what my life is like now. I'll go through that fairly quickly. As a child growing up, I had siblings. I had parents that loved each other. I came from a wonderful home. There was no abuse. There was no neglect. There was nothing but caring and loving and nurturing and supporting. So I feel like a lot of times people kind of find a blame and feel like they have to have a reason for why they were doing what they were doing.
My mom, on the other hand, you know, she was our protector. You know, she was just our like good cop. He was the bad cop, you know what I mean? So it was like you got these two parallel forces that are also kind of against each other in opposite directions, yet somehow you still end up being their destination of all their attention. Because my mom, she going about it one way, my dad going about it another way, and they got this disconnect. But, you know, I always felt loved. You know what I mean? My brother and I, we saw a lot of crazy things growing up, and it impacted us in different ways. My brother, he took things in one way, and it weighed heavily on him, and he had to work through it. He didn't have what I found, which is hip hop, you know, as an outlet, as a creative force, as a way for me to write and use my voice and to have an opportunity to live my dreams out through something that feels like it completes me.
And while that may be true, I have found in my experience, I use those as excuses, right? Because it's not normal to drink the way that I drank. All through high school, you know, I had a normal high school. There was nothing really traumatic or awful that happened in my life. I mean, I'd had some unfortunate events, but nothing that would have made me, you know, jump off the deep end, so to speak.
If you go beyond the pantheon of weed and alcohol, you end up on harder drugs like heroin or you know what I'm saying, powder or something. It could have dire consequences. I've seen some people I love fiend out. I saw other people pass away from either accidents or overdoses or accidental overdoses from being in prison sometimes, whether it be physically or mentally or legally. All these things, they constantly were reminders for me to say, all right, I can't go that far, but I'm gonna push it. And so, you know, the parallels of the lifestyle needing to be involved with other people socially, but also productively in this entertainment sphere. And the fact that I was burying myself in these substances and these problems that I had were just becoming mud for me to drown in. It was quicksand, you know what I'm saying? I found myself severely successful opening for artists like DMX and Styles P and headlining the big venues in my city, but also just completely empty.
It's a silent illness, I think. And I feel like as I got older, and there was one event in my life that I think had an impact on my drinking, and that was when my father passed away. I was 30 years old. I was pregnant with my youngest son, and it was just a really rough time for me. And after I gave birth to my son, I don't think I ever actually processed my father's death correctly. And when I say correctly, I mean at all. Like, I didn't grieve at all because I didn't want to. And that's part of what my illness does, is it makes me bury feelings, and it makes me try to forget them. And I try and forget them by ways of drinking so that I don't have to feel those feelings. It progressively got worse. My life progressively got worse. I found myself soon divorced with 2 kids. You know, I shared custody. I got my first DUI in 2011, and I didn't really take it very seriously. I just thought it was bad luck. My drinking was pretty heavy. It was pretty out of control at that point, but I don't think anyone that was around me or that knew me really well realized the level that it was at. I know a lot of people thought, yeah, she's got a problem, like There's, sometimes Stephanie gets a little crazy when she drinks too much or whatever. But I don't think anyone really knew the depth of what I was struggling with internally.
That led me to a really dark place when this is my way of processing depression. This is my way of facing the issues that are inside of myself, how I manage my suicidal ideations. I had to look at life and realize that the only way that I could add to my life was by subtracting. And I learned quickly that when you stop bringing the party no longer shows up for you. Did I keep throwing shows? Did I keep working? Did I keep doing this? I had to. Because for me, there was no other way. But at the same time, you have to understand that, I had to deal with myself. And I think that's where the intersecting road in all of these things is, whether you've been through abuse or depression or abused yourself and have been depressed and have had nowhere to go, have dealt with, being in the Bing. If you have people facilitate situations where you end up being the loser all the time, it transcends regression and it transcends rejection, because every setback ends up being a get back. And I had to stop looking for revenge or looking for a way for me to mix with people and mingle and create environments where I could disguise myself liking somebody else or someone else liking me based off the common theme of a consumption of something instead of being productive. I was always working, but I looked around, a lot of people around me weren't doing nothing. So, I learned through that path that it's often that elevation, the number one symptom of it is separation. You got to separate yourself from the people who are bringing you down, and you have to learn how to separate your problems from your processes so you can process your problems and find solutions to the problems that have existed within yourself for so long. Because no matter what's happening out here, until you solve this problem, you ain't going to be able to get past everything else going on. You got to conquer yourself before you can conquer the world.
I was sentenced to do AA classes or AA meetings. I had to do a couple of other things, some community service, pay some fines. It was like a slap on the wrist. It really didn't do anything to help me at all. After I got off my first probation, I continued to drink. I progressively made my life worse. All the while, I was thinking that I'm not really affecting anybody. I'm just hurting myself, right? I eventually had gotten to a point in my drinking stage, and I don't know, I don't know all the specific levels and all of those things, and like stages and progressions and all of that. I just know from my experience. But I was to a point to where I would think to myself, if I don't wake up tomorrow morning, that might be okay. And it took a very long time to realize that that's not normal thinking. That's not normal behavior. And that's no way to live your life. I wasn't really living my life. I was just going through the motions, right? I, again, had no idea the damage I was doing to everybody around me. I got my second DUI in August of 2014, August of 2014. And it was a different county. It was a different city, someplace I didn't live. And that's what I think impacted my life the most, obviously, because now I have two. I'm a little more trouble than I was the first time. And it was getting a little more complicated. Like everything was kind of intensifying, and it was getting a little bit more, and it was getting a little bit more. And, I never knew how to reach out to help, to ask anyone for help. Like I didn't know how to do that. I mean, I obviously I'd been through AA meetings before, and I hated every minute of it because I wasn't willing to accept the fact that I was an alcoholic.
So I put myself through I guess an isolation, but I still put myself in this game. And I still took everything from my past and I added it into my future by dealing with it in the present, no longer through the filter or the lens of being intoxicated, but instead really trying to sit with it. You know, really trying to develop a way for me to process these thoughts. And I delved further into the pen. I started journaling. I had new opportunities working in education, bringing my creative writing process to private and public schools. I did a TED Talk. You know, I had things happen for me because I decided to be the change that I wanted to see. I no longer let myself be defined by my past. Yet it still was a difficult thing to realize because I wasn't an alcoholic until I stopped drinking. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to recognize that when I quit drinking, that's when I realized I had been drinking. That's when I had to climb out of a ditch in my mind of years and years of burying myself. And it took 2 years before all this noise finally became sound and it started to make sense. And so every day I try to wake up and look beyond the feelings that I still have from my past, the ritual, the way that the habits, they show up still where you have it's not a craving necessarily, but it's like an expectation of this coming after that. I tell people all the time that getting sober is like playing a video game for a very long time with background music. And then when you stop drinking, there's no more background music. You'll have to deal with your life like a film without a score.
The purpose was get better. Like you need to get better and you need to do what you have to do to make yourself better before you can be any kind of anything to anybody. Since then, I have, I did all my meetings. I completed my probation. I do some other programs. There's a treatment center that's close to where I live that I volunteer at, and I've done some speaking at. I do a lot of talking. This is my first documentary or anything like this, but I have done open talks where I speak to large groups of people and kind of share everything. The biggest thing that I wanted to talk about is if you're struggling, you have to ask for help. And there's always somebody that is willing to help. You know, they have AA numbers. You can Google it. You can call a phone number, and there are people that will talk to you and they will help you and they will find resources that make sense and things that will help you get better. I have such a rewarding life now. I was able to, sorry, I keep getting text messages. I was, you know, getting sober. When I got sober, I was able to be a part of my kids', you know, middle school and high school years. And you know, my youngest son played basketball, and he was an amazing player. And I was able to go to every single game, and I was able to be there to cheer him on, and I was able to, you know, drive him to AAU tournaments, and I was able to, you know, pick up his buddies that needed a ride to a game or to practice or something like that. And those kinds of things are priceless, right? I can't put a price on that. I would have missed all of that had I not gotten sober. So I'm grateful to Judge Joseph Burke in Washtenaw County Sobriety Court, because that man changed my life. That was the guy that finally told me no and said, you're not going to do this anymore. You're going to do this instead. And that definitely saved my life, for sure. Reach out, ask for help, talk to people. I'm telling you, it just gets better. It just gets better from here. So I appreciate your time and your understanding, and thank you.
Peace and love. What up, everybody? It's your boy T.O.N.E.z, T-Dot, however you want to say my name, writer, producer, Emmy-nominated, MC, director, now editor, author. You know, I do a little something. So first off, I wanted to give a big thank you to my fellow executive producers, Graham Yost, Diane Gembala, and a special shout out and mad love to Jacqui Blue, who inspired me to do this documentary. I was gonna do a video about my situations and everything, but to be honest with you, y'all, I'm going through it right now. Like, I'm dealing with it a lot right now. And although this documentary is I guess it's helping a little bit, but it's not about me. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna get into things I'm going through, but I want to just say a few things to y'all. Always remember, when somebody tells you to get over something, whether it be traumatic or physical or mental, whatever it is, remember this: you never get over anything. You just learn to live with it. So I think that's the best thing we can do, is learn to live with it. Respect the past, but never dwell on it. When you say you want to show love, don't show love, give love. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people are starving for love. If somebody's hungry, you're not going to show them food, you're going to give them food. So look at it that way. Stay in touch with your peoples. If you say you love somebody, you care about them, their family, stay in touch with them. I'm like the king of staying in touch. Like, I hit everybody up. But every once in a while, you want somebody to just hit you up randomly. And some people do it. These are people I haven't even met in person. They're like fans. But, but also remember this: if they're not hitting me up, then maybe they're going through something. You know what I mean? So it's not us. It's a give and give, And, when you think about all of the things that were spoken about in this video, a lot of people just want to bring awareness, but we all know about it. So it's not about just bringing awareness. It's about finding solutions. And one outlet that I try to stress to people is to say, listen, get it out of your system. Whether you talk about it, whether you write it down, whether you type it out, whether you talk to yourself, however you want to do it, but get it out of your system. Cleanse it the best way you can. I deal with stress-related ulcers, and so I have to get it out. So I got thousands of songs that will probably never come out, because it's like therapy for me. So get it out. The same way you clean out your phone and clean out your car and, clean out the cookies on your computer or your kitchen, whatever. Try. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but it may help a little. So that's my words of wisdom to y'all. And I got to get back to doing what I'm doing and getting myself together, because like I said, y'all, I'm going through it right now. So I just want to say peace and love, and I appreciate each and every one of y'all for taking time out to watch this documentary. And I'm not a fan of Misery Loves Company, so I pray none of y'all are going through anything that's these people, my friends, that was going on in this video. I know it sounds weird that why I make the documentary, but I'm not a Misery Love Company type of person. So I really hope you guys are doing good. Let me get back to me. Peace and love, y'all. 100, your boy T.O.N.E-z.
I think just about anything can be weaponized if you limit your vocabulary. There's a lot of people that they hijack language. One of the most, I'll show you the hijacking of language. Man, that is so bad. But we meant good.
Yeah.
Right? Here's another one. You come off stage and someone says to you, man, that was incredible, dude. That was unbelievable. Right. It either has credibility or doesn't. Or it's incredible. Yeah. Where I come from, the word in means not. Inconsistent, inconsiderate, incredible. Okay. So if I come off a stage and it's the hijacking of language. If I come off the stage and someone says it, I wrestle it back so people come back to what the language means. I said, so you said it was unbelievable? You didn't believe me up there, brother? Did I look? Yeah, they said, no, I know you were very believable. I said, well, you said it was unbelievable. Oh, come on, T. I'm like, no. I'm a language guy.
I wanna get lost for a while and drive all night. I wanna just lose my troubles and see what I find. Whoa.
Why me? Why am I the target? Why am I the one who hurts right where my heart is? Try to lay low and tuck my chin to my chest. Stay behind the shadows while snakes continue to rattle. See, I pray I never get noticed, already been humiliated. Picked on and teased, punched and kicked to my knees. A fistful of keys unlocked the door to my pain. Beat on until I folded, hate formed like a swarm of locusts. Left on the ground, pain, found the streets to go home. Walked through the door like everything is cool, but these pills soothe. Take one, take two, take a mouthful, numb the pain. These bullies make me say.
I wanna get lost for a while and take my time. I wanna go somewhere new and nowhere in mind. I wanna get lost for a while and drive all night. I wanna just lose my troubles, see what I find. Whoa.
See, I wake every day to beatings from dad. The reasons are anything, some things and everything. Smack for just breathing, punch for leaving dishes. Locked in my room until my frustration blooms. When I head to school, full of fury and rage. My book of hate's open, I read every page. Find the weakest kid I know, punch and kick him and smack him. Cause in my house I'm abused, so I bring it to school. I don't know why I do it, my misery hates company. These other kids that I'm hurting, facts, they don't deserve it. The cycle needs to end, the self-hate needs to stop. Maybe I should just end it all sometimes.
I wanna get lost